also say Alex is in my office with me here. Vinny and for those of you who don't know, Mike Briggs has joined as well from our team. Just again, just to be here and so that everybody's on the same page and whatnot. So this really all came about because Mountain Lakes has not been in contract as a REMSCO for a number of years. And that affects everything else in the big picture of things and how things operate and contracts and funding and getting funding to you and everything that comes along with it. And our team, our contracting team, has worked pretty diligently with your leadership team at the council. And Mark or anybody, feel free to stop me at any point too if you feel like anything I'm saying is off. But we've worked pretty diligently to try and get you into contract, to try and say, hey, what do we need to do? Let us walk you through it. Our state systems are not always the easiest, so it's not uncommon for areas to not be in contract for a period of time, and then we work to resolve those issues. We worked with Jonathan on some of the things, and then worked with your leadership team on that as well. What seems to be constantly coming up and where I think we might be at a little bit of an impasse right now is the ability for you to get into contract. It does not appear, based on the current standings and information that is at least being shared with the department, that you'll be able to get into contract and get into contract in a timely manner and in the ways that things were in the past. As we start to look at those options, one of the options is always get into contract, right? And things remain the same. One of the other opportunities that come up with this is to look and say, well, what is the best path forward? How do we, kind of maneuver this or move into something in the future? And part of that comes down to, like we've seen in other areas, do we merge with another area? Do we merge? We see it already with your program agency already merging, or not merging, being served by serving two REMSCOs. Do we merge the two REMSCOs? If we were to merge the two REMSCOs, do we merge them the same way they are today, or do we align them with the economic development zones? That really is a lot of how we're looking at things in the future. If we were to look at it in something like that, it would mean, I think 2 counties go south and the rest, and the northern counties cover the North Country, in a bigger picture from that side of things. But those are conversations that, none of these conversations is going to come to a conclusion today. This is about having the conversations on the floor, having your leadership and executive committee talk about some of the struggles that they're, dealing with, and understand that, the state is here to help and to support, but also look at the big picture, look at the future, look at, kind of what's the best for everything involved in order to be able to move things forward, and have those discussions today. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to solve the problem overnight. That's okay. And we'll work through that with you and with your region and the program agency and everything else that comes along with it. So that's really the high level component of where things are. And I will, kind of pass it back and like, your leadership has said, we're happy to answer any questions that's within our domain to answer. There's a series of challenges that are going on right now with your region that are not related to state activities. It's purely related to local, kind of commitments and things that go with that we don't deal with. But I think you have the right people here in the room or rooms to be able to, kind of answer any of those questions that come up and kind of figure out what that future looks like. Is that a good synopsis? Anything else I didn't cover?
I think that sums it up. Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Does anybody have questions at all about this? I know some of it's kind of
hey, Ryan, so just then you made mention that there's local we use politics going on. What does that mean?
So I don't even know if the word politics is the right word. I think there's local things related to your REMSCO and your organization, your nonprofit status, your finances. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
Not
nothing
politics
new
in the sense of, government and electeds and that's not, this is internal.
related to the IRS status and those items. Nothing new has occurred.
What are the cons? So let's say we do go to North Country. What would be the negatives in doing so?
Is that to me?
And anybody, just throwing it out.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll start from the state side. So I think there's like, look, right? There's pros and cons to anything. I don't see a ton of cons. Particularly, one of the biggest cons that people would say in the past were, well, we'd have to travel further for a meeting, we'd have to go somewhere else. But reality is you can have multiple meeting sites. You just have to post them. And so everybody is under this general consensus of you have to be in one place. You don't. You can be in more than one place. We see it right now going on, for this meeting. That eliminates what I would say is probably the biggest con. I think if you were to look at, kind of saying, hey, yeah, let's go merge with one or two, other REMSCOs, looking and having those conversations with that REMSCO to see what does it mean, right? Does that mean they increase the number of seats that they have so that every county still has representation? Or I don't know exactly how you split it. Every REMSCO is a little bit different, but, to make sure that you still have the representation, right? But if you talk about a con would be as if you were to go in and you didn't have the same representation. I would say that's a con. But the more and more we deal with our REMSCOs, the more they, the work that comes back to my office is that we can't get people to join. We can't get people to sign up. We can't get people to show up for meetings. We can't get people to do these things. And so to me, that although that, there's one side that you look at it as a con, there's the other side that's a pro, which is, are there less people that we need to, necessarily be a part of it? Are there more people who can be engaged over a larger, area that equals, the right people sitting at the table to be able to be engaged and get the work done and not have it just be, one person doing everything, which, often tends to happen anyway. We've heard a little bit about the money, right? What happens with the money, and that's something that we'd have to flush out at the point that we look at this. We heard about particularly the money on the program agency side, what would happen there, and kind of that funding. And again, we'd have to look at that and understand it. It won't go away. I can tell you that much. It's not like, well, if you merge with the others, the program agency goes away. So Jonathan, you don't have to worry too much on that. It might divide a little bit, right? If there's 2 counties that are going this way and 3 going the other way, that number might look a little bit different. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. That's something that I'd have to, kind of look at with that. We spoke about the scholarships. That was a question that came up with some of your executives. So, what happens with the paramedic training fund or the things of that nature. And that might be something that we can work through, particularly on a short term. Maybe it's for the next 3 years. It doesn't change, but after that, it does. I don't know. I think we can probably look at that, as one of those things. Same thing for recruitment and retention. Has that affected or things that are coming? But I'll also say to you, your program agency is, doing a good job at making sure that you try and use some of that money, but we see that, in a lot of cases, a lot of regions are not even using those funds that we put out there, that they were so quick to say we needed to put out there, and then once they're out there, haven't been used. When we look at the pros to this, we look at, being with a stable REMSCO, looking, for an organization that is financially stable, that's able to receive grant funds from the state, that's able to receive the financial gains, that's able to continue doing the work that many of you are doing. Reality is that also the biggest thing that the REMSCOs used to hold and workload was protocols. And since they've gone to collaborative protocols, a lot of that is handled at a state level by collaboration amongst you and other areas and things like that. And so, I think as we start to look at that, that starts to align some of our other REMSCOs and InnoPro and being able to work together, or come together, or unite and kind of pool some of that funding and things that come along with it. So that's a little bit of my perspective. You know, and then I'd say, you know, like what's another con if I was to pull something out? Some people would turn and say, you know, well, the Mountain Lakes is my identity, right? Like that's we have to be Mountain Lakes. And so people would say, you know, I'd lose part of my identity. And I think again that comes back to, you know, when you talk about what does that merger look like, what does that name and you know, kind of who you are still look like after.
Thank you.
Craig, last week, the Warren in Washington, most of the delegates and 4 out of the 5 medical directors were able to get on a call similar to this. And, you know, Vicki laid everything out, and then we just kind of chatted about, you know, what direction to go. We felt that the REMAC, you know, should weigh in as well, because depending on what direction we go, we're going to have to go back to all of our agencies within the county and, you know, kind of paint this picture and give recommendations. And I think, you know, from a pro perspective, you know, the 2 options were laid out. One, the Warren Washington go with Essex, Franklin, Clinton, and we all go to North Country, or the 2 southern counties, you know, go and approach REMO and see A, if they even would want us, and B, how do we make that look? Or how do we make that work? And, you know, some of the pros, and this, you know, came from some of the medical directors, is one, you know, Glens Falls Hospital is the primary hospital for both counties. It is part of the Albany Med system. A lot of things that we get a lot of things down here, you know, clinically that are much more aligned with that system than they are with any other system within Mountain Lakes. You know, certainly logistically, it's much closer. So rather than relying on electronic signatures or those kinds of things, there's a physical presence that's close enough to be able to do it. Certainly from a con perspective, looking at REMO is some people would say a little over the top when it comes to expectations, especially for rural EMS. You know, certainly they deal much more, even though they have some rural pockets, they're urban, they're suburban, that's really their focus. You know, Pat can talk much more on that. He's the deputy chief in a REMO and a large, you know, suburban REMO agency. But, you know, we felt that, you know, we don't want to put any of our agencies at risk, because walking in day one, we wouldn't be able to meet those expectations of the REMAC or the REMSCO. And then the other thing was, you know, as the director said, is, you know, representation. How would we get adequate representation both at the council level and at the REMAC level for both counties? The biggest concern I would say with going, well, I think there was 2 concerns with going with North Country. So I think because of where we are geographically here, there was some discussion about clinical things that I know both counties, and I think medics and ALS providers in both counties have felt that the current REMAC has kind of held us back on here, mainly because we're not kind of in that ultra rural setting where REMO is certainly much more open to some higher level clinical things. You know, MFI is one of them, all of the, you know, common things were there. So that was one concern. And then the second concern, to be honest with you, is the distance. You know, certainly the program agency would still be out of Fort Drum, but just the fact that that's just a long ways away from these 2 counties. So that's kind of a synopsis from that meeting. I think the conclusion out of it was, if, depending on what the council wanted to do here, if we thought that there was going to be a separation of the 2, that these 2 counties, the Warren Washington counties, would create a little work group with 1 or 2 of the docs, 1 or 2 delegates from each county, and then meet both with North Country, REMAC reps and council reps, and do the same with REMO, and kind of get more fact finding before we even went to approach the agencies in our county. But at some point we would have to approach the, you know, the actual agencies and, you know, try to be representative of their thoughts and feelings.
Thank you.
So my concern when we've been talking about this as long as I've been on the council, which hasn't been that long, but we've been talking about it. My concern is with the representation. I kind of echo Craig's thoughts of, okay, what are the cons of us doing this? And I guess my first question is what does our representation look like if we dissolve? And let's go the route that Clinton, Essex, and Franklin go to Fort Drum and Warren and Washington go to Remo. What's our representation look like then? And then what does our representation look like if all 5 counties go to Fort Drum?
Right, and I can speak a little bit to that. So the way that North Country's current REMSCO makeup is set up is it's based off census. So they are currently capped at 21 members. That's just by their bylaws. That can obviously change because statutory, you can have 30. And then it is based off the population from the most recent census is how many people that county gets. So like Lewis County is a low population. They have 4 reps, including their county board. Jefferson County has, oh God, you're gonna make me do math. Jefferson County has a vacancy, but they have more because they have a higher population because of Fort Drum. And then St. Lawrence County makes up the remainder of it. So what I would envision, I can't speak for the council, but I imagine in conversations that would be had with Debbie and their executive leadership is that makeup would still, that would be their metric still for filling the seats would be based off a population base. But I definitely think there would always be representation on those council or on the council for the respective counties and the levels of care.
So I guess my other concern on this is we joined Fort Drum, and I this is not to say anything bad about Fort Drum at all.
That's okay. You can say whatever you want.
Please don't feel this is me saying that. But I feel like representation aside, I feel like each area has its own unique challenges, and I feel like blending Clinton, Essex, and Franklin into Fort Drum, I feel like we may not get the attention that we may need for our specific area, for our issue that we may, that may come up in the area.
So I can see that concern, but I can also tell you that I don't see that being an issue. Having that 3,000-foot view of both sides and representing both sides, the challenges you have here, while unique, are not that different from the challenges they see over there. Aside from a couple of larger population hubs of Watertown and the military base, they're a very rural and super rural area. So I see your concern. I do hear your concern. And while, yes, there are unique challenges to this side of the mountains, they're not really that different.
And not to continue to ramble with my thoughts of your question.
No, you're fine.
Well, let
You guys-
Ryan
I
jump in
like
here.
the ramble.
You guys mentioned about having your meeting with the docs from Warren and Washington County, but has the REMAC as a whole been, not, I understand that the REMAC is the committee of the REMSCO, but has the REMAC as a whole been apprised of this situation? And then what happens with our REMAC? Does our REMAC fold into the REMACs in the other regions, or do we maintain a REMAC specifically for our areas? Because we same thing, we have our own challenges on that side of things, that having our docs in the 5 counties currently are able to tackle. And again, I'm concerns there as to whether that still is able to be as effective falling into a new region.
And again, I can't speak for the REMSCO because we are 2 separate entities. We're our own nonprofit. They're their own nonprofit. But when Debbie talked, and Patty might be able to even chime in on this, because Patty was in on those meetings, there was even conversation of, even though it would be 1 REMSCO, there would still be 2 REMACs, especially for a time period as to align standards and of providers and credentialing. I definitely think these are all things, though, that if you sat down, if the council sits down with North Country REMSCO and their executive leadership and brings these concerns, I definitely think that they would listen and take them to heart and would definitely consider anything. because it is I mean, Ryan can attest to this, it's gonna be a learning curve for everyone. I know when when we took over as program agency, I was a director at the time, but it was a challenging time, we'll just put it that way. And we still have our challenges, but I do feel like we have come through a lot of those challenges and have made some good headway. And Ryan has his hand up, so I'm gonna stop talking and let him talk. Oh, Julie, you have a question?
Yeah, kind of a comment, and maybe this is more, I've only been on this committee for, this is my second meeting. But Mountain Lakes Regional EMS approved regional interfacility protocols that are for Mountain Lakes.
Either guidelines.
All right,
You have to call them guides.
but I don't want to lose those. We have worked really hard at that.
Right, and I don't
And-
foresee that.
And there was a lot of opposition to it, and so that's why they're Mountain Lakes.
Yeah.
So I would not be in favor of anything that would cause us to lose those.
I don't think you would. In fact, I honestly think you'd see I mean, it would depend on what the REMAC makeup would be, if it would still be two REMACs or if they combined into one REMAC, but I definitely don't foresee that being a challenge. And I don't see it as well.
Just real quick before the director jumps in, Julie, I think that's the point of when we make a decision, when we go to whether it's North Country, Remo, whatever, we have those conversations, right? And we say, we have this as part of us going with you, these need to be brought in with you. You know, these need to be part and parcel of what we're doing. Maybe they'll accept them for their region as well. But, you know, or maybe they have a different version that can be, you know, maybe they have the same thing that we just, you know, you change the letterhead to make it work. You know, I think that those are all negotiable. We should look at this as, if we have to do this, let's be in the driver's seat. Let's not wait till it gets to the point that we're just told what's going to happen and then everything goes away. Let's be in the driver's seat and let's make it happen. And then the last thing on the REMAC, I think it's important to remember that the REMAC is a committee of this body. We are the, you know, this is the REMAC is not putting it, but as far as the chain of command, if you will, the REMAC is a committee of this body. And yes, we need to sit down with the REMAC as a whole and have the conversation with them, but they are a subcommittee of this council. So, you know, I think that's just important to keep in mind from a hierarchy perspective.
And I think,
Okay,
but
we'll
I,
let Ryan go, and then we have a couple here in the room also, so go ahead, Ryan, please.
yeah, so, but I do think it's important that, you know, the REMAC is an active part of this. This is, you know, a decision, you're one team. They are a subcommittee, yes, but it is one team, and it's flushing through that. It's flushing out things like what you bring up and the work that's been done, and how does that, you know, continue to be a positive in the carry forward of what the future looks like. And, you know, like Mark said, you know, this is part of making those determinations if we go down this pathway of getting to select, right? You know, where are we going to go? How's it going to operate? You know, what comes with or what do we gain, right? Like I would imagine there's some things in the Remo area, and I think you were just talking about hospitals and stuff like that, that would be, you know, positives in becoming a part of a system, you know, kind of with some of those fundamentals and things that are already in place with it. I apologize, I don't remember your name, but the gentleman who was talking right before, who was in the pink hat, maybe it's a pink hat, on my screen it's pink, maybe it's not. You know, you mentioned about, you know, the concerns about losing, you know, some of the, you know, abilities to do certain things, or some of the things that you do because you're in a rural community. So one, remember that a significant portion of Remo is still in a, you know, kind of has many rural parts to it. But, you know, for my side, I guess my question is, like, what's an example? Like you mentioned the protocols, the interfacility protocols. I think that's a good example of something that might change. But like, if you were to come together in either direction or in both directions, right, half and half, and figuring that out, like, can you give me an example of something that you think would truly change, that would, you know, affect either you as agency leaders or the clinical care that's going to be provided, or something else that would be to a negative that you can think of?
Concern, I would have a concern with Remo's requirement for staffing their staffing requirements, ALS staffing requirements. That would
What's their-
certainly.
What's their ALS, like, forgive me, I'm not sure what their ALS staffing requirements are. What do you mean by that?
Pat, you're probably closer to it than I am.
Yeah, we just have to clarify what the exact staffing model is. As long as you have, as far as I know, as long as you have a contract or the ability to have a paramedic or advanced life support with you, I think it should follow suit okay. 'Cause I know there's still are some BLS agencies out there that call other agencies, for ALS, or they get dispatched on a regular basis, with them there. So every agency does not have a paramedic. I'm not sure if that's, Vicky, if that helps you or not. I think that rumor has been out there. There's a paramedic on, on every call or every ambulance, if you will. But I know there's still some agencies out there they're still BLS agencies.
I think it's more of the 24, so if you are an ALS agency at whatever level, that you have to have as close to 24-hour coverage as possible. If you're gonna be credentialed as a paramedic agency, then you have to demonstrate 24/7 paramedic coverage, or as close to it as possible, either directly or through contract.
And I would remind everybody that, those are the things to bring up and concerns, and those are things that, if we need to look into as a state to see what is a statutory or regulatory requirement, that we're happy to do that, and then to discuss anything that might not be in those categories.
Paul, you've had a question, Carl.
So a lot of this contract revolves around money, of course. Is there a possibility, because we've been operating without this $25,000 a year, whatever it is, to do a contract without any funding?
No, because you can't enter into a contract without the legalities, the other component, money aside. Because you're not you won't get past the screening process to be able to sign a contract with the state.
What's the holdup for the screening? Or what would hold us up with the screening process with the state?
As you go, well, I don't know, Mark.
No, I was gonna say, with our 501c3 status, we no longer have a current 501c3, nor can we obtain that until we can get our taxes in order. And to get that back, it's generally about 3 years from the information that we've been able to uncover. So we're years out from being able to have that back, to be able to even try to sign a contract with the state.
Has anybody approached these other organizations to see if they're even interested in taking us on?
Well, North Country did a presentation last year, roughly about a year ago. I think it was. Has it been that long now? A couple of years. Did do a presentation about merging the two. I reached out to Debbie in the beginning of the conversations. I haven't made any further contact with her about what it may look like or not look like. We've had several meetings with the state and other stakeholders before we got to that point. We wanted to come to meet with the entire REMSCO board so everybody openly understands where we are and what's going on, so there's not hearsay as more people start discussing what's happening. We do need to obviously form those committees to meet with REMO and with North Country to see what the options look like to proceed.
And those are conversations also that we can help to facilitate too. and that, to a certain extent, there's not a rush on this, but, to make well-informed, wise decisions in time rather than a rush decision in a short period of time.
So I will say initially back, and I guess this is all a lot more related to the program agency than REMSCO. But initially there was talks between the REMSCO and North Country as well as REMO as far as like program agency consolidation. And it was more all of the counties going one way versus all of the counties going another way. So I don't see why REMO probably wouldn't be open to the discussions. Also, same with North Country, they had a presentation and they kind of, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but there was a lack of progress on our end, Mountain Lake's end, and they kind of not lost interest, but they weren't going to keep putting forward an effort without getting an effort back a little bit. And I know there was a lot of work on multiple people's parts to try to get stuff going. So that's no fault to anybody's. So I do think discussions are very, will definitely be had and can be had on all sides. And I think there's definitely concerns from southern end and northern end, if we want to put it that way, I guess. I don't know. But, so like critical care level and AEMT level, I know REMO doesn't do a lot with them down there. But then, like Mark said, REMO is also very progressive, and their work with Albany Med, I think, would be good for a lot of agencies that do work on that end. So, I don't want to see the northern end get left out and not be allowed to do some of these things like RSI and things along those lines. If the southern end does go with REMO and they are able to do that. I do know that the North Country REMSCO is very active, and I think that any concerns that the northern end or southern end really had, if they were brought up, they would definitely be considered. Like, they're very considerate on that front. So I would say, yeah, we get some meetings together, but I think that we need like a list of concerns or things that we want. And also there are some little discussions here, like what is the goal of the REMSCO? What do we don't want to separate the REMSCO, but like what's our goal, or what is the REMSCO's objective, and what are we trying to do? So like there hasn't been a lot of progress. So I don't know. I'm just putting that out there for everybody.
Brian, have you seen these sort of mergers with other REMSCOs and had any success with them or drawbacks from doing so?
Yeah, I think first steps that we've started to see is the merger of the program agencies, and then we've seen the program agencies starting to work more with the regions collaboratively, and I think those have been kind of first steps in what we've seen. We've heard a number of discussions of regions wanting to merge or come together and things like that, but we haven't seen it as much yet. And from our side, we haven't really pushed it. We're kind of letting certain things happen organically. The conversations that we've heard, we do try and say, please try and align or pivot or kind of look at things along the lines of the economic development regions, because it is kind of just the pathway of what we really coming out of COVID align with in many ways, including the rural health transformation grant and the other things that are going there. This is kind of the boundaries that we look at. And so, that kind of comes on that front.
Scott had something.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment that Patty was talking as well. Patty and I were both on the group that was meeting with FDRHPO. I just want to say it seemed like a reasonable proposal. We're making progress. It's all that on financials, which I don't think would be an issue. At this point, the direction that been done. It seems like a very decent strategy and plan for the northern county. So frankly, as it's not, I think it just makes sense. And
we're not really having time understanding what you're saying here in Austin County.
Yeah, I was just commenting on, and Patty may want to comment also. We did meet with FDRHPO. We had quite a few meetings. They had a really solid plan for the northern counties and Franklin, Essex. It stalled out on financials, which I don't think is an issue at this point. I think we could resume those conversations, but it really sounded like a good plan, and we were in favor of it. We did meet some opposition from medical. So we had several conversation with their medical director. So we will need to visit that because that's where that's all at.
Yeah, we, 100%, Scott, you're right. We did have meetings. What it came down to is, and I don't blame them, they don't want to pick up or take on our financial, background or baggage that we can't get cleared up. And, so I think that is one of the reasons why that's came to a halt, is because we're just not moving forward on that aspect. The plan that they presented, I think, was definitely viable. You know, obviously needing to look at it and tweak it to make sure that we're represented and answer any other questions that we might have. But yeah, we need to be doing something.
Able to summarize the plan that was presented?
Oh boy, it was a couple years ago. Jonathan helped me out. I know I know she wanted to keep 2 REMAX. I know the representation, of course, I was only caring about Essex County at that moment, but I think it was like 3 people. So Franklin should be comparable. Not sure about the other counties. I remember that. Deb clearly had a plan, and obviously did not want to, quite frankly, this is my opinion. I think if we were to do something, we would just draw the line in the sand, figure out how we're getting rid of the old Mountain Lakes. I'm gonna call it a business, and then start fresh with another, North Country possibly, if in fact we can get all our concerns negotiated out. I don't see a path moving forward for Mountain Lakes, because we can't get the, all the financial stuff figured out to be able to enter into a contract. I went there, lived through it, and could not do it with the financial side. So I think I give Washington Warren County a lot of credit for already having a meeting, including your REMAC docs. And I think that's what we need to do at this end too. Or meet together and try to hear out what Deb has to offer. I'm just like saying we keep talking about this over and over again. And I was glad that Ryan was sitting with us today, because I thought we were going to get like an ultimatum or something to say, hey, we need to really start I know that we need to really start getting this figured out.
Right,
Because
and
we're not.
Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, because we're really not serving our agencies and our patients as well as we used to be able to do it in the past. And we're just sitting here talking, we had deliverables and we had QA/QI projects and a whole bunch of other things happening. And Mountain Lakes is always a resource to, hey, I got a question, I want to call the Mountain Lakes office and I want to get an answer. I'm not going to have to necessarily wind through the state stuff. Now, I always email or call the state first, just because we don't have that local connection, I guess.
And I just wanted to clarify that, yes, the state is giving us an option at this time, but there will be a time very soon that it's not going to be an option. We have to do something. It's not, do we want to go with North Country? Speaking on behalf of Essex, Clinton, and Franklin, you're going to have to go somewhere. We don't get to choose to either go or to stay Mountain Lakes. That's not the option right now, unless we can somehow magically make Mountain Lakes solvent again and get us back up and running in the next year, which I really don't see happening, but we're going to continue trying. We have to do something before the state steps in and says, no, this is what you're doing. Just to be that we're all on the same page and we really don't have a choice. We are moving ahead in one fashion or another that doesn't involve taking the name Mountain Lakes with us more than likely.
If I
Just to
may
be
add,
blunt.
again, sorry to interrupt, but if I may add, I think my initial reluctancy to move over quickly was because of the debt that we have. We had it with hotels, we had it with vendors, we had a ton of debt out there. Knowing now what we have in the bank, because I do have access now, we are in a much better position to make this move now so that North Country does not take on the burden of Mountain Lakes. So I think that this conversation needs to move forward because I agree with Patty. It's not going to happen overnight, especially knowing the tax issues that we're having. So we should get in front of this and stop kicking the can down the road, so to speak, and move forward with meeting with North Country, REMAC, REMSCO, all of those wonderful letters that we used. Because we are now in a position that we can do.
Go ahead, Brandon. To build off of what Craig just said and what Patty said, I agree that I think we need to move forward with meetings, but not to be this guy. And I know some people are probably not going to like what I'm going to suggest or what I'm asking about, but I feel like before we make decisions, before we move forward, I think we need to have all parties in a room together. And I know that that's difficult. I know that we've gone to this 3 sites because this is easy, but I think we have enough time to plan it out where we can set 4 or 5 months from in advance, set a date and make sure that everybody knows and everybody's committed. Get all the REMSCO members there, get all the REMAC docs there, get representatives from the program agencies. So we can have a meeting with all involved parties to ask questions, to kind of plot out what moving forward looks like. And I don't think, as much as I appreciate that we're doing this and that this is working for a quorum, I feel like having screens up and people talking in different sites is not going to be as productive as it could be for what we need to make a decision this big.
My only concern with that is if you get too many people in a room, nothing's going to be solved. So from my perspective, the executive councils can work on something and then collaboratively come together with some sort of consensus. We're probably going to be better off. Maybe I'm wrong. But we're probably better off in the long run and then have a large discussion.
Like Brian said, this isn't going to happen tomorrow.
No.
So plan it out. Plan it out for first after the first of the year to come together. I mean, not to sound like I'm kicking the can down the road, but with enough pre-planning, we can figure out how that works. So we're not stuffing 50 people in a room and nothing getting done. You know, come up with a game plan, come up with an agenda, come up with who talks, who listens, or how to express your concerns and who the representative is to present those concerns, rather than, because I mean, we've all sat through REMAC meetings and we know, no offense to some of the REMAC docs are very opinionated. Some of us are probably opinionated as well, and I've talked more in this meeting than I think any of the other meetings that I've talked at. But I think that we can't move forward with such a big decision without everybody, all the parties involved face to face.
Well, I think that probably makes sense for the final determination, but I think there's a lot of homework that we could be doing in between times. I think, however we want to do that, to have a meeting with North Country, with REMO, whether we want to do it as all 5 counties in a work group with some REMAC members involved in this. We create a little committee and we meet with North Country, we meet with REMO, we fact find. I also think that I think pretty much the writings on, I don't want to say that because I don't want to speak for Clinton, Franklin, and Essex, but certainly I think your path is a little bit different than the potential path for the 2 counties down here. We could make a decision to go, either direction. So I think we have to have conversations with our agencies as well, with the actual, boots on the ground people. So, pushing out and having that big meeting, I think is a good idea, but I think at that meeting, it's like, that's decision time. You come in with, this is the fact finding, and, the people I know that are in the room is you kind of formulate what your recommendation is. Director, is there any possibility as we start to plan out these meetings to talk to the other REMSCOs or even the REMACs, is there any possibility that we could get a copy of the current deliverables that a REMSCO has so that we know what a REMSCO is supposed to be doing currently?
Yeah, Jonathan should have both of those.
I don't
You
have
don't
one
even
for
need me
Mount,
for that.
I have one for North Country that I'll show.
The same for everyone. They're all the same.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mark, we just want to keep it in mind, Jonathan can surface it, we'll search it too, but we had like a year and a half discussion already with FDRHPO. So I think we should just surface what we've already done. Patty, Jonathan did a lot of work. He met with the council that we've done a lot of work. So we'll surface that just to put it further.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, kind of going off what Mark said, to, take some of this information back to your agencies. I know, like in our case, we have our bi-monthly EMS advisory board meeting tomorrow night. And I was planning on bringing this up to the agencies there, give them some information, find out what path they would prefer to go on, and then, bring that back to the REMSCO and say, hey, the Warren County's agencies are majority of going this way, or that way. I think it's probably going to be one of the best ways to do it. Then you can get an accurate feel for all the agencies, in each county. So that's my 2 cents.
The one thing I would say too is, as you start to look at this, is, we know the system the way the system is, and it's been a certain way for many years and had a lot of reasons on why it's been a certain way. And sometimes change isn't easy, and sometimes we don't like change. But sometimes change in the long term is best. And having the ability to draw out what that change looks like, when you're in control of the change, when you have the ability to point out and highlight the things that, would benefit from it, as well as, ensuring certain things, that have been worked out stay the same, is a great position to be in. And like I think it was said before, that opportunity is here now. And it's something that probably should, be, firmly addressed while it's the opportunity, before something happens that it's not an opportunity, for whatever reason, right? And this has been we didn't end up at this table overnight. We ended up at this table after many, many conversations to, try and figure that out. But all at the same time, when we look at some of the, the papers that have come out lately, the EMS Agenda for the Future, the Rural EMS, paper for the future, and things like that, that talk about collaboration, that talk about coming together, that talk about, all these things. And really this, tracks and aligns with a lot of that as well. And so, just kind of to put that out from that front as well.
We have a question here. Caleb has a question.
Brian, just from a state perspective, do you have the general timeline or idea of, or next steps you would like to see from us in particular, either from our respective county or from REMSCO as a whole? I know we're kind of, you mentioned just kind of looking at our next steps, but.
I was excited that your executive committee said that, you'll have this all completed by Friday. By Monday, we'll probably start the transition into whatever it's going to look like. And then by next Friday, it will all be done. And hopefully we'll be entered into a new contract by then too. Because, our contracting process in the state's really quick. I think 5 days should be fine. But no, where's the timeline? I realistically look at summertime. I think if by the end of this year we knew what the path is forward, I think that would be awesome. I think that's, time to talk to others and, figure out, kind of some of those steps. Patty brought up before, it's been a number of years since you've spoken to North Country about this, bringing that back to the table and just, working towards this in a positive direction, but not where anybody feels pressured, but looks at that long-term success and what the long-term model works, that that benefits, kind of everybody involved in this, as well as the patients and the providers, the agencies and the support and the quality and everything that comes along with that one as well. Let me ask you, I mean, does that sound realistic for, end of the year?
I think so. I mean, I think we're already kind of in the process of having these conversations, or at least getting the ball rolling, so I think that's really reasonable, especially before our next meeting, to kind of have a general idea and some better progression in that.
Great. If you can get it done by next Friday, though, don't bypass that opportunity, and I encourage you to please, expedite that process to them.
Wouldn't hold your breath.
Yeah.
Make a deal with you, put out the blood and the community paramedicine regulations for public comment, and we'll have it wrapped up.
Didn't say what.
But we could use the same timetable.
Wait, one or both? How about just
Both.
one of the two?
If
If I can commit to one of the two, does that work?
Yeah, we'll still be done by the end of the year.
How about this one then? Check the contract registry tomorrow for one of the two.
We have a deal with that. Marky Mark.
Yes, Paul.
So when we make these decisions and all that, does this have to be approved by the state?
There are things that would need to be approved by state. There's different components of it that move along. Not necessarily I don't want to say the minutia, but some of the minutia. So like if you're discussing like with North Country, hey, we want to, or I think it was Remo, you said they have 21 seats. Well, we're going to expand to 25 seats in order to add 4 for, whatever. Like that stuff doesn't necessarily need to be approved, but other things, in the splits and finances and contracting and, scholarships and those components would need to go through us.
You'll have to deal with BLM. Because our contract will definitely be affected by whatever, regardless of if it all goes together, spits on, so.
And look, reality is, and I'm just going to put this out there too, this might spark other conversations, right? So like if you start to talk about this might yield, another region or something else happening that, excuse me one second, can you just tell them I'll come right back? That it might yield other, areas or things that say, hey, we want to align by a county here or county there. And so I think there's some other, opportunities along this way. And depending on how those things fall, maybe it doesn't equal, that much of a difference in program agencies and where things fall. So lots of conversations to be had with that, but, we're looking for solutions and to move in this direction.
Short term opinion on whether 3 counties or 5.
So FDRHPO as a whole, again, speak to it, but there would be financial implications if 2 regions were to go a different direction versus staying all together. So if you can read through my lines on that without saying the definite of what I'm saying. As a
stumbling block.
correct. We would have to look at staffing, finances, things like that. It could create some challenges on our end of ensuring that we have staff that can go all over. But also on a REMSCO standpoint side of things, I haven't broached that conversation with Debbie yet of what her thoughts would be if the council were to stay all together or split off and be 4 one way, 2 the other, 3 and 2, sorry. So I can't speak to that. I'm not sure. But
So follow up that, and excuse my naivety.
yeah,
If all 5 counties went, we all join the same REMSCO, is there a possibility where you could have like committees off of the REMSCO, like former Mountain Lakes Committee and
oh, God, yeah.
that way,
Yeah, and I
people
think
in
that
St. Lawrence County are, I shouldn't say making decisions, but people in St. Lawrence County that have no idea about Washington or Warren County, people
Yeah, no, I definitely
Right.
foresee that
initial
being
concern.
not a challenge at all. Again, I can't speak to the REMSCO themselves. They're a separate own little thing and where they're underlings. But I don't foresee that being a challenge. Yeah. Or an issue.
I will say, and I know Jonathan tried to say that in the nicest way. Yes, if there's, if it splits in counties, there possibly could be financial things that need to be split as well and stuff like that. There might not be, depending on how things pan out, and kind of splits and things happen. And so those are definitely kind of two sides of it that we'd want to look at and have a better understanding as we get closer to that front. But also, in some of the things that you brought up before, you need to make a decision that, aligns with what you think will be best for the region, for the counties that are involved, for the providers, for the agencies. And, that might yield that two of the counties, it is in the best interest for them to align with, a region south versus a region over, because of many of the things that you mentioned before. So just keep that in mind, for each of you as, kind of a body on that front as well.
And also kind of to tag on to that too, Ryan, like at the end of the day, the decision that you guys make needs to be grounded in what's going to be best for your patient care, what's going to be best for your patients. If that's coming to North Country, that's coming to North Country. If that's going to Mountain Lakes, going to Remo for the other two, that is going to Remo for the other two. At the end of the day, this isn't about dollars and cents and all of it. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's about what's going to be best for your patients at the end of the day. And as long as you're making that decision with sound judgment, then I think you're making the right decision.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask this just as covering bases. Let's say we're moving forward with this. What if one of the other counties wants to go with Greenville instead of North County? But not saying that we want to, just hypothetically, what if Clayton County said, yeah, we feel more comfortable going with Greenville? Is that's all right? How would that work? I mean, if we're putting this to our agencies and our agency representatives are saying, yeah, we'd rather go Remo than North Country, and the general consensus is we don't want to go to North Country, we'd rather go to Remo. How does that work?
I think those are discussions that we'd want to have and figure out why and figure out kind of what those pathways are forward. Again, from a department point of view, we really are trying to align, when there are changes and, organically with the economic development zones. And so, that's our strategic long-term kind of goal. We believe that is the right thing. So I think those are conversations that we'd have to have if there's, something that's, in that ballpark.
I'll follow up on that. What if all 5 counties want to go to Remo?
I think those are all things. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's an interesting component, and I think as you have those discussions, we should talk more about it. If that's what it comes up to, right? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Well, and I think too, looking at the future with the economic development zones and everything too, FDRHPO just applied for a huge grant for the rural health transformation funding that's out there. And it flows through, we partner with AHI, which is basically the equivalent of FDRHPO's other entities aside from EMS for this area of the economic development zone. But we just applied for a grant for rural health transformation that is aligned with the economic development zone. So it does probably open us up to some more grant opportunities that would be able to be done region-wide through the economic development zone, if that is the model that is adopted.
So the economic development zone right now says 3 should go to Fort Drum and 3 should go to.
So the North Country Economic Development Zone is Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence, Essex, Clinton, Franklin, and Hamilton. Correct? Pretty sure I'm right on that, but.
Yeah, I can
Mike's shaking his head yes, so I'm gonna go with him.
I'll give you a little
I just-
visual aid. So these are the economic development zones. You'll notice they're very, very close to, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So you'll notice they're very closely aligned, especially as you start to look at like things kind of together, to many of the regions that we have, short of a county here and a county there. In your case, your Warren and Washington fall into the capital region for the economic development zones. In the North Country, Franklin, Clinton, and Essex fall, kind of encompass the North Country, including Hamilton, which is interesting because Hamilton is, part of ARMS right now. And this is why I say like this might foster other conversations to happen, but that's the organic part that we want to, allow those conversations to come to light and to kind of develop from there.
My question was just purely for, so we can say that that the question was asked and that nobody ever brought it up. And so we can't say that.
Oh, no, you're dead. No, no, I get it. No.
And I appreciate it, right? Like these are like, ask them all, right? There's no bad question. This is what we're here for. This is, why we're working on it. So yeah. And look, reality is, and I'll put it out there too, Pat, based on the patch on his, chest at the moment, he's like, oh no, I'm on a phone call and I'm getting called on. No, obviously, works in both and has, probably inside perspectives on both of those. And so I think that's a giant asset to have as well.
Hey, Vicky,
Yes, go ahead.
we have a meeting coming up in end of August. And as busy as the summer is, as we all know, could we get North Country to look at their presentation and make any adjustments that need to be made when she reviews it? Because it's been probably a couple of years, or maybe not a whole couple of years, and bring it back for another presentation at that meeting.
I can certainly reach out to Debbie and see if she is willing to do that for that meeting, yes.
Thank you.
So
Is
I
there-
am going to drop off and I'm going to ask Mike Briggs and my team and Vinny to drop off as well to give you guys a little bit of opportunity to talk without the state here. I really appreciate your time. Jonathan has all my contact info. Patty has all my contact info. Call me. Mark has my, I think many of you do now. I'm looking around the room. Feel free to, I'll be driving for the next 3 hours. I gotta go to, where I'm at for tomorrow. If you end this call and you want some of my time, feel free to pick up a phone, call me. You'll help me with my drive. I do not mind at all. I appreciate the time today. I appreciate the ability to, to talk to each of you and hear your perspectives on this. I think this is an amazing opportunity that's falling at the right time, that, has the ability to, kind of help the system on a bigger picture that aligns with some of the, reports that not necessarily the department put out, but, your peers put out, in recent times and things like that. But the other big component of that is that we're in a position right now to do it at a pace and a thing that aligns with making sure everything is kind of what you want it to be on the other side. Maybe not exactly, but that's also part of change and adapt and change for everybody involved. So that's where I'm at. Is there any questions before the state drops off? Awesome. Thank you. And bye, Patty. And I really appreciate it. And if you need anything, feel free to call me. Don't mind at all. Have a great
Thanks,
night,
Brandon.
everyone.
See ya.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion or anything we want to talk about in addition to what we've already discussed?
So what do we want to do going forward?
think just, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but I think just having respective meetings with our counties probably to get an idea of which general direction we need to go, best place to start, and then, I don't know if we want to communicate that with everybody else and try to set up a meeting with North Country or Remo, depending on what direction our counties want to go, and just see if they'd even be willing to take this on or help us with that.
Is there any, I'm sorry, Patty, is there any appetite with the Essex, Franklin, or Clinton to have a conversation with Remo? I really think we need to have a conversation down here in the next few weeks, at least if they want to even enter into some conversations and express any of our concerns. Is there any of the other counties even have a remote interest in joining that conversation?
So just get for all cards on the table.
I don't know if Patty may want to jump in, but I think from Franklin's perspective, it's their bathroom. Yeah, the rules that.
I can't quite hear you, Scott, but I think what you said is we're rural like those guys over there and not like this, like Albany-ish area.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I may not be talking loud enough, but yeah, no, I think we have a Franklin County. I think Essex County is very much the same boat. Our clear path forward is FDRHPO, just because I don't think Remo is going to be able to handle how rural it be able to be. And clearly we're much closer to FDRHPO. So
The one thing
That's
I
our-
do, I texted Julie back, is when she mentioned a while ago, those guys, unless I texted some other Julie, which could be, those guys put so much work into those interfacility transport protocols. And it really impacts that Franklin County catchment area, and it offers these guys, it offers the hospital actually a better resource or additional resources to get those transfers out. I think that is definitely one of my concerning points with that as well. So that would be my own, listening to everything else Deb had said originally, and I'm sorry, I'm just talking about us northern agencies. I really feel that would definitely need to be negotiated strongly, that we would like to see that stay in place.
So I can speak to their they call it a non-protocol drug policy is what their REMAC has. And essentially it's if the agency medical director has developed a training or has a training, has trained the individual on that training, then you can use whatever drugs or vets or whatever. It's all just covered in a policy. They don't have any specific trainings for things. I think they should. So I definitely think if anything, they would adopt those into their region. So they're not going.
So, and I'm not surprised, with you guys in the South already having a meeting. So we were having sidebars up here, obviously, as you guys were talking. Our summer is so busy that what we were talking about was if we could get North Country back, after they've looked at their, presentation they gave us to see if there's anything that they should change now. On the 24th of August, when our meeting is, then we could definitely be pulling together our Essex County folks, I'll just speak for our county, and start getting their input, which I think is gonna be minimal. They quite frankly don't think that there's a mountain lakes pretty much now anyway. So I think they might be excited about, a region picking us up, where we might get some, resources or some other, just some deliverables would be super great, or new, what's the word I want? New things that we could be looking at, or QA/QIing, or stepping forward with community paramedicine, stuff like that, some guidance for that. And then we could come back after that and making an educated suggestion as to what at least our county would like to do.
On top of that too, it was kind of mentioned earlier, but I do think we need to just flesh out if they would be willing to either give us time or waive some of their requirements for ALS agencies, like with Remo. I know they're a little more strict. I think it would put a lot of agencies down here in jeopardy of losing their credentialing or being able to even keep up with ALS. So, and that might be a deal breaker for some people down this way. So I don't
Yeah.
know what North is like, but
I didn't know that until we just had that conversation up here. That is a little concerning. Yeah, so I get both ends kind of have, discussion points for sure. I'd love to see us all stay together.
And the state had mentioned on one of our meetings, I think we've met with them 2-3 times. We're meeting again Thursday with them. They're like every week and a half or 2 weeks, we have to meet with the state. They want answers about what we're doing, how we're doing it. But Ryan did discuss that if we all go one direction or another direction and it's not working out, there's the option to move a different direction, to join a different REMSCO if need be. Is that it wasn't this is where you go and you're locked in for life. There can be options for change if it doesn't work out. At least that's what he said. We all know it's easier said than done, but that was brought up.
specific people to oversee kind of those conversations to make sure that happening and communication is facilitated between counties, I guess, or how does that happen?
I mean, we have an executive committee at the REMSCO already who's not sure what everybody's thought is, if we need a special committee on this or how we want to handle it.
Anybody representative to each county.
I think it's fine to have a committee, but I think it's probably gonna be more effective if the REMSCO as a whole is involved in this decision. And I think, as you guys are meeting with the state more frequently, us as a council need to meet more frequently. Maybe we need to move to a monthly meeting instead of the quarterly meeting, because there's just a lot of business that goes on in between those meetings that probably gets forgotten about, not thoroughly discussed.
Right, and that's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here tonight, instead of waiting until August. Yep, I agree.
If we were to do a monthly meeting, so we keep apprised by that, could we make that meeting be something more informal that we could attend on Teams and not need a forum?
No,
Any meeting that you're gonna discuss any official business of the organization has to be open to the public. I tried. It's an avenue I've already tried going down and we got shut down really quick.
Even just it'd probably be interesting, like even if the 3 northern counties wanted to meet, that'd probably be close to a majority of the board that would even have to be advertised. So, with the northern end being the smaller 2 counties versus 3, that's kind of okay. So it's definitely open meetings laws with the state. So it's not like something that we're setting and making that rule either too. It's a state thing.
But there's nothing saying that there can't be, we can't take notes after every state, meeting that the executive committee has with the state and send that out to the body. We do it all on Teams. The state does it all on Teams. It's all transcribed and recorded. So we have the transcriptions from the calls. We can share that out with the committee as a whole, the REMSCO as a whole. So that way you guys are seeing everything that's discussed on there. If you have questions from it, you can read that, send your questions back to Vicky or Mark, or to our office, and we can facilitate getting answers for that too.
Is it possible to get it sent out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just because.
Yeah, it'll be posted on the website.
A meeting like that, that's, to read through a transcript, that probably, you could probably get lost in that, but to turn a recording on and listen to it.
Yeah.
And pay attention to it, yeah, I think.
No, I don't think that would, the state is the one who records those, but I don't foresee that being an issue if we ask for it. Do you, Vicky or Mark?
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a problem. But meeting.
okay, so work on getting North Country to revise their plan, see if they want to meet at our meeting in August. I think we need to locally discuss meeting with Remo and see what their deliverables are, what they're offering. So then we can at least bring that information back to the August meeting. There's no reason to have both REMSCOs at that meeting, I don't feel we need to invite Remo and invite North Country. Unless I'm off base, I don't feel we need to invite both of them to that meeting in August, but I think if we at least have information, accurate information that we can discuss at that point, we'll at least be moving in the right direction. Just my thought. Does everybody agree? Okay with that? Any other discussion or questions? I know it's been a lot of information tonight. Was it? All right, we can always stay in touch with email or put out another call emergency meeting if something changes between now and our August meeting. See everybody then. Thank you very much for your time tonight.